Welcome to Global Tax Talks. I'm Will Morris, and I'm delighted to be joined by Teresa Owusu-Adjei, who is our Clients and Markets Leader for Global Tax and Legal Services. Teresa, welcome.
Thank you.
Good. Great to have you here and to actually be in the UK as opposed to New York, which was the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So let's talk about reframing tax, which is this big survey that the PwC has done. What it reveals, not perhaps a huge surprise, but what it reveals very clearly is tax executives are under pressure, caught between competing priorities, soaring compliance on the one hand, strategically supporting business reinvention. So what are the biggest challenges that they're facing, which may also be reaching the C-suite itself?
So the big thing is actually exactly as you've just said, right? That the compliance just never ever stops. And if you look at what you've been covering relentlessly over the last few months around tariffs, that's something else that they never would have predicted a few months ago. So that's something else that they've sort of had to deal with. But we know that the world is changing. Value pools are changing, and that CEOs are telling us that they need to do something different. And therefore, that's where, with reinvention and transformation, you always want your tax team at the table with you to do the right thing, to manage your stakeholders, etc. So that's the big pressure on them. And we see it day in, day out, that the world is changing at a fast pace, but like the regulation is kind of changing at a fast pace as well.
And just to follow up on one of those points, so, you know, we talk about obviously how this affects tax.
Yeah.
But there is this linkage with the C-suite as well. And, you know, sort of how is that changing? Is that evolving?
Yeah, very much so. So the C-suite is saying that they want more from their tax team. And that very much comes through both our survey, but also the annual CEO survey. But what the survey reveals is that there's a huge disconnect between what the CEOs think that they're getting out of their heads of tax and how the heads of tax actually think that they are contributing. It really comes across that the heads of tax are probably putting in the bare minimum because they're so busy basically keeping the lights on. And that actually, if their time is freed up, they would be able to contribute so much more. And so it's pretty much a bit of a self-service, and the survey does reveal that big disconnect.
Good. Okay, so we've been hearing again that tax functions have a number of skill gaps, and again reframing tax, and you know they expect generative AI to change this in the next 3 years. So, what do you think the future of the tax function is going to look like, and in particular, what specific areas of investment are you seeing going into?
So really good question. A bit of a skills gap, actually. The 95% of the respondents in every country, and we spoke to people in 47 different countries, all tell us that they have a skills gap. So pretty much like almost everyone, right? And the vast majority of them also say that skills gap is wide, over half of them, right? So we then ask them, well, what are the skills that you're looking for? And as you say, interestingly, the number one skill isn't the world that we come from as tax experts. It's actually AI skills, followed by data analytics skills. So your question around, well, what does the tax function look like in a few years' time? I think in an ideal world for a head of tax, all the mundane things that suck up a lot of time, that they will have done it in a way that it's automated, that they've embedded AI to do it, so that they can free up their time to meet the demands of their stakeholders in the C-suite.
Great. Good. Okay, so we've talked about the difficulties. Let's end on a
positive,
on a slightly more optimistic note. So, you know, rethinking the tax function really is kind of overwhelming for tax departments. But can you give us an example of how, you know, a company or companies have been dealing with this and, you know, successfully?
Yeah, sure. So over 80% of the respondents said that they are looking to outsource more than they ever have done, because they don't necessarily have the people or the technology skills. So they're really looking to collaborate with service providers such as ourselves at PwC. And so when we look at connected tax compliance, when we bring everything together in the tax compliance space together, what we've seen is a huge rise in the number of companies that are looking to collaborate with us and for us to really kind of help them there. And sometimes what you have is some clients will ask us to do some of the tax compliance, but actually some they do themselves, but then are asking for our advice on how they get the data, how they have better technology as well. So I would say that's the best in class. And that's the direction that I think most people are going to go through.
Good, great. Well, Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. I'm already looking forward to the next time. But again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And come back next time so that you stay global tax ready.